Okay, welcome to the Spotlight with Shaun O'Rourke. Stu is back for episode 3. We are going to be talking about Star Wars. We're going to be talking about The Flash. We're going to be talking about box office flops. We're going to be talking about Extraction. We're going to be talking about Marvel movies. We got a lot going on in this episode. So here we go. Stu. So, Extraction. We talked about it a little bit in the last episode.
Yeah.
They're talking about sequel, prequel.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? What are you thinking?
I I like the idea of a sequel. I'm kind of like a prequel because the problem is Chris Hemsworth is going to get older, and then it's going to be like unless you cast someone completely different to play him, which I don't know why you would do that. And I mean, they kind of set it up at the beginning of the film where, after his mission, you see him like jump off a cliff into the water and just sit under the water and like meditate. So they kind of like set it up at the end when he went over the bridge. You're like, he can hold his breath for a long time. Granted, he's got half his blood coming out of his jugular or
Out of his
whatever.
neck. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, right?
But I mean, they kind of teased it. And then when you kind of see the out of focus person standing there, I mean, for one, like you said in the last podcast where we are talking about the action, I mean, realism kind of went out the window when everyone kept getting hit by cars and getting up and like like it was
Yeah,
nothing. So I say let's
yeah,
just
totally.
let it be a sequel and not mess with the prequel stuff.
Yeah, well, and my thing with the prequel is we've already been told the prequel story. He had a little boy who had cancer
Right.
at 6 years old and died. That's what got him to where he is. Obviously, he even talked about being on his 5th tour in Afghanistan and missed the death of
Right.
his child.
He was running away.
So, like, for me, I don't give a shit to see him in Afghanistan and all this stuff prior to him becoming a paid murder for hire or extraction guy or mercenary, a merc, right? That's
Right.
basically what he was.
Yeah.
I don't care about that.
Yeah.
We've already told that story through dialogue and through visual cues with the child, and when he had that discussion with the little guy about, cancer. And I don't need to see a prequel for this guy. Just give me more of him. And the only thing is, like, at the end when he goes to visit the kid at the pool,
Hmm.
for me it was like, why? Like, was he just going to tell him, "Hey, I made it"? Or is this kid going to be part of, like, him going forward killing people? Like,
Well, I kind of
because
took
he's
it.
still a drug dealer's kid. Is the drug dealer going to get out of prison? Is he going to go after him again? Like, I don't understand why he would show up at the kid's pool at the swim meet.
Well, I think I mean they kind of alluded to like well they said definitely said what's the kid going to go back to like when they were trying to be like just cut him loose. He's got nothing. Like his dad's in
Right.
jail probably forever, and then you kind of see this kid like where he was literally the only person that wouldn't give up on the kid. So I do feel like he might sort of see it as a second chance to like do right because he was clearly not there for his son when he died. So I think in his
Right.
mind, this is sort of like at least he can do this right, even if it kills him. So I feel like he might just be going to check on the kid to see did you end up in an okay place, or am I going to take you on as not now my surrogate kid or whatever? Like
Yeah, because now I don't have a kid, and here's a kid. It's
who
like
needs a
trading
dad?
off. I got a kid now.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I can see that.
Well, here you go. You know where all these stories go when they start having the son tag along, Crystal Skull. I mean, come on. Like, I'm just saying, like, leave the kid alone. Like, he's done. Just give us another story. It's kind of like Taken.
Right.
The second one had nothing to do with the first one, although the last one was like them seeking revenge for the first movie. But still, like, give us a different, just send them on another damn mission, right?
Well, what I could see kind of the way they kind of left it set up is I mean, they clearly went and killed all the bad guys or the team
Right.
did after, we think he's dead. But let's say his father gets out of jail and wants his son back, and what if he's now the kid doesn't want to go back to his dad and he's tied with Chris Hemsworth. So now you have Chris Hemsworth against a cartel or whatever kind of crime organization.
Oh, we saw that movie.
Well,
It was Rambo. It was the last Rambo
all
film.
right. Oh, maybe we might get more action in this one than 3 scenes. So,
Exactly, exactly. I will say that, the director, Sam Hargrove,
mhm,
who was the second unit director for all the action sequences for the Avengers films, Infinity War, a lot of
that
Marvel
makes
stuff.
sense.
He also played the sniper in the movie that got shot in the head with
Oh,
the beard.
yeah. No
That was
kidding.
him because
He
he's a stunt choreographer
wow,
slash second unit director. He's an actor as well.
wow.
And I saw some interviews on the press junket online, and he's the dude. He's the guy who got shot in the head that was that badass sniper in the beginning, which really sucks because if they did do a prequel,
Mhm.
although I'm kind of like, it would be nice to see Hemsworth and him, Sniper and Extractor, working together on missions. But again, it's like, how that guy's story ends. He gets
Yeah,
shot in the head by friendly fire, basically, by a guy who winds up being the friend. It's like, that's what, anyway.
that was and we didn't really touch on that last week, but I mean, I kind of feel like I don't get how this guy literally killed his whole team, but we're cool now. I mean, I guess it was sort of like he looked at him as the kid's only hope. But yeah, the guy was a jerk because he was essentially trying
Well,
to hire these
again,
guys to
that,
do it and then kill them so he doesn't have to pay them, even though the cartel or the kid's father was like, whatever it takes, get him. I assume he has a shitload of money, so they probably could have easily paid them. So I didn't understand the double cross there. And then to
well, I think they did talk about the fact that the drug dealer had money, but it was hidden and you couldn't get to it or something like
oh
that. So
yeah, they said it was
he
frozen.
technically,
Yeah.
it was frozen, so his assets were frozen, so he couldn't. But that being said, it's like with Bad Boys 2 or Bad Boys for Life, the last Bad Boys for Life.
Yeah.
The son killed the captain
Yeah.
and all these other cops that, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith were friends with,
Right.
and was his, and all of a sudden they wiped the slate clean in the post credit scene. It's like, here's a mission. They'll grant you amnesty if you come on out and work with. It's like, you're really gonna forgive that he sniper shot your boss and all your other cop buddies? I mean, like, that
Yeah.
kind of like, let's team up with somebody who just murdered everybody doesn't make any sense to me. But again, that's the Fast and Furious thing. Jason Statham, goes in and kills 20, 30 guys, uh, uh, and then all of a sudden him and Hobbs and Shaun, they're all friends now
Yeah. Well, it's
in the
like
next movie.
Gemini
I don't get it.
Man was like that too. Like in Gemini Man, it was essentially like this guy had killed everybody. And then at the end, Will Smith's like, there's a chance, telling him like we can work this out. So it's almost that's what I found funny about Bad Boys for Life was that ending was almost identical to Gemini Man. And Will Smith was in both those movies. So I'm surprised he didn't be like, like, hey, I just did this scene like in the last movie. You know what I'm saying?
Well, maybe he thought either one's gonna be successful and one's not, which brings me to our next topic.
Hmm.
Um, Gemini Man, was one of the top bombs of 2019, and they just kinda put out the numbers on that, and, it looks like the studio, uh, uh, is gonna have to write down, $111 million on that movie. It cost $138 million to make. It only pulled in $173 million at the box office. The rule of thumb in the film industry is you have to double your budget just to break even from
Right.
your marketing costs and all that other kind of stuff. So no matter what the budget is, they got to double it to break even. So they needed to make 280 million to break even. They made 173 million. They're writing down 111 million dollars. And that's just one of a handful of big time flops. One that kind of threw me, which I knew it flopped at the box office, was the X-Men Dark Phoenix. So that one, now this was 20th Century Fox, and I think Disney, they bought them, so they had to write this down too,
Right.
because I think that whole acquisition was going on at that time, and that one lost 133 million for Disney for the Mouse House. So it had a $200 million budget. It only made 252 million. Needed to make 400 million just to break even. So, but my question is, why was X Men Dark Phoenix? Why did it bomb? Because it wasn't that bad. Was it word of mouth? Like, I can't understand how the marketing failed it. Like,
I
because it
I know
wasn't a
exactly
bad
why.
film.
I know
Go ahead.
exactly why it failed. Because once Disney or Marvel acquired Fox, they knew that story was done. Like all the audiences who's really down with the MCU, they knew that like why even go bother watch this because it's gonna have zero like it's all about to be rebooted. So who cares? And which is sad because I saw it and I didn't think it was a bad movie either. I liked it. And like they've been dancing around. It's kind of weird with this sort of, because you had the Bryan Singer films, and then when he left to go do Superman, which he shouldn't have done because that movie
Yeah.
sucked. But or
Ugh.
Superman Returns. But I mean, with the X Men, they kind of touched on Dark Phoenix a little bit, and then I wish he would have finished it off. But then they do this sort of soft kind of reboot when you had X Men First Class, and then they went with this new younger version. But then they start doing
Right.
Dark Phoenix again, and you saw it at the end of Apocalypse when she went kind of almost full blown Phoenix, and then you see it in this one. So I think from an audience point of view, it's just a very confusing movie because you're like, well, we already kind of saw this, and this is still sort of technically part of the same thing, but it doesn't make sense. And this shit's all about to be restarted anyway, so who fucking cares? I mean, that's the way I looked at it.
Do you really think the general audience understood that it was all going to get a reboot?
Oh yeah, anyone that would be into X Men like that, I mean, because again, it's like everyone loved Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. You know what I'm saying? Like, and when you kind of
Right.
like take him out of it, I mean, because even maybe not in Apocalypse, but maybe was it Apocalypse? There was a cameo where you saw Weapon X Wolverine, where you had the stuff on. I feel like that was either that might have been the one before that one, but one of them you did see Wolverine and stuff like that. But I feel like
Well, there was the one where they saw him in a bar and were like, "Hey, you want to come?" And he was like,
well that was yeah that was one of the early
"F
ones.
off."
But I do feel like I want to say in Apocalypse there was a Weapon X Wolverine in it. And like they let him go and Jean sort of did this, mind thing with him to calm him down so he didn't kill everyone in the complex. I mean, he was killing everyone in the
Oh, oh,
complex.
oh, and he just ran out of the complex.
Ran out of the route but that was Weapon X. Like that was the Weapon
And
X
he
Wolverine.
and he was he did cameo in that. Yeah.
Right. So I feel like when you kind of know there's like these nods to the people you really want to see because they kept trying to push Jennifer Lawrence as this big draw and like make Mystique this big character. Just sort of
But Mystique was never really
she was
a main character.
not really. She was always a bad guy, really, or you never really knew where she lied. I mean, she's the movie version definitely isn't the comic book version. At least when I was reading X Men, she wasn't like that at all. So, I mean, I think everyone was just kind of over it. The movies just kind of kept getting worse and worse. And then when they got to this one, everyone's kind of like, well, and the news was everywhere. Everyone was talking about it. Like everyone was letting everyone know when Fox acquired or when Fox goes to Disney, we get X-Men and MCU. And that's really what everyone I think was like, well, why waste our time on this crap? So that's my
And that
thoughts
might be
on it.
some well, and that might be something that uh will come back around to after we're finished with this conversation. Terminator Dark Fate, of
Yeah.
course, lost $122 million, generated 261 million from a $190 million budget. So again, it needed 400 million to break even, and it grossed just half of what Genesis grossed.
Yeah.
Now, see, I didn't see that coming. I knew it wasn't going to do well. But what I didn't see coming was that it wasn't gonna do as well as Genesis, because Genesis completely sucked, and I thought, well, because Linda Hamilton was coming back and they were kinda rebooting it and all this kinda stuff, I really thought that it would beat the box office of Genesis at least, and the fact that it didn't
Yeah.
was mind-blowing.
But I think
But that
you
movie was just marketed crap.
Well, I think that's what ultimately killed it. I mean, and I don't think I could really add much other than I mean, you kind of did everything great in your rant on Terminator Dark Fate.
Oh yeah, we
that
got to have that link in the comment section on
yeah.
YouTube for this video.
But I mean, I will say it was a complete marketing failure because this is what people in Hollywood need to get is that Twitter is not real life. Most Americans don't want to be talked down to or like act like, they're idiots or whatever. And then you just have this really aggressive, sort of push that it's a girl movie. And it's sort of like, well, who are you appealing to? Because the Terminator fan base, I mean, not to turn it into like a gender argument, but its demo is like probably young guys who like action movies, who want to see a
Exactly.
Terminator kill people. So I don't understand
Exactly.
this push to make it like all girl power, which again, I'm not opposed to having like strong female leads because you get Ripley and Linda Hamilton and as Sarah Connor, which was badass in Terminator 2. So it's like I think it really was off-putting to the general audience. And they think that, oh, this is what everyone wants because everyone's stuck in that little bubble and they just don't
Well,
see
and
it.
I also think the hardcore fans, which is you and I, were completely betrayed by that opening sequence. And I
Yeah.
think that once that leaked online, because it really did, it was all over. You could get images on Twitter like the day before the movie came out. People in other countries were posting the video of the opening sequence. And like for me, going in, that pissed me off. I still went
Yeah.
and paid money and saw it, but I was like, dude, you killed John Connor. Like, what are you thinking? Um, but yeah, I think marketing failure. I think if they never went the route of the girl power angle on it and just let the characters, let you understand the girl power as you watch the movie,
Yeah.
it would have been fine. I don't get it. Just bad decisions. But then, you hear all the behind the scenes Cameron was hell to work with in the editorial process. Tim Miller was not happy.
Mm,
Um, and he felt he let the fans down, and yeah, he did. He totally did.
yeah.
Um, Cats. I didn't even see it.
Who wanted to see
I,
that? Like,
I never
honestly.
saw it when it was at the Winter Garden Theater in New York City. I mean, I
Well, yeah, I
never.
mean, like when it was a play in the 80s, like that's
Right.
when like the 80s, early 90s or whatever. Like,
I think it's just look. I think it's just one of those things where there's been this trend to make musicals.
yeah,
After La La Land, everybody started trying to, well, what Broadway thing could we bring and make a musical out of? What
yeah,
I mean, it's like Steven Spielberg in Post on West Side Story. Who the hell wanted a reboot of West Side Story? And when
right.
I've seen some of the images come out, they look just like the original movie. Like they recreated the time. They didn't do any twists. It all takes place during the same time, same period, same costumes, same like what are you gonna just change an angle on a dance?
Well, it's
Like
like
I don't
the Psycho remake. What was the point of that? It
what
was a
was the
shot for
point of that?
shot remake
It
of
was a
that.
shot for shot remake. It was an exercise,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Weird.
Yeah.
I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all. Um, so that covers that. I mean, there was a lot of really bad movies that lost a ton of money uh uh last year, but there were quite a bit of films that actually made money. So, and they were a lot of the smaller films that actually made money and did fairly well. But again, it's like we got to stop beating a dead horse with some of these, especially the franchises. I mean, Terminator. I don't even know if I ever want to see another Terminator film again, unless they completely reboot it without Schwarzenegger and just do something totally different. But as long as they don't go the route that they did with um, Hellraiser, with the really bad Dimension um, remake of it, the with like low budget special effects, and like
Yeah.
if they go really bad with it, or if they just go back to the original roots. I think the original Terminator was shot for $11 million or 7 to 11 million.
Yeah. I
Like
mean, I
if they like, I get Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't making 25 million a picture in '84.
right.
He probably got $300,000 for making that movie. So why not just start with new, fresh actors? that cuts the salaries to nothing,
Yeah, I think it's
and
weird.
go hard R, and I don't mean hard R as in just dropping F bombs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
For
talking go
violence.
hard R like a horror film, like the original, like when Arnold met the 3 guys, you know? "Nice night for a walk.
Yeah,
Nice
yeah.
night for a walk." And then he punches right through the guy, lifts him up, and then pulls his hand out, and he
Right.
literally punched through the guy's chest.
Right.
Come on. They've never done a scene like that in Terminator since.
Nope. I mean,
That
the problem too is you're trying to remake these movies that were made in an era where you were just it was ultra violent and gory and stuff. And unless you're willing to commit to that, which I don't see happening today with everyone's kind of feelings getting in the way of everything, I don't see them do it. Like you can't do it justice unless you're willing to commit, which was like the director that was going to do the Alien sequel and the RoboCop.
Blomkopf, yeah,
Yes, like everything you saw from that guy
Neil
looked like he was
Blomkopf.
gonna basically take that movie and make a continuation of it and make it be like that. And that's really what the fans want is just a like an evolved
Exactly.
version of that. But we keep getting these remade versions of today's, I guess, ideals or PC stuff, and it's a miss. You're missing the audience that you're like going for with that.
Yeah, I would have loved, when you saw the artwork that came out from
Yeah.
Neil Blomkamp's, uh, um,
I saw it.
version with
Yeah, it was good.
oh my god. Oh my god. I would have killed to see that movie. And then he said his could have taken place in an alternate timeline, like maybe the shuttle from the Sulaco, the escape, thing went into some sort of time thing, and those other movies could exist,
Why?
in
But
another
why?
I mean, it's
They're garbage. They
they're
don't need to
garbage,
exist.
right? Just
Yeah.
make a direct sequel and
Yeah.
forget the rest ever happened.
Yeah.
Uh, and going back, because we were talking about X-Men and all that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stuff. Um, so you saw that the Russo brothers did. Everyone's been doing these things. I watched. Uh, they get these charities going with the Zoom, and they
Mhm.
get the cast of the movies.
Right.
And then you hit play, and they'll live narrate to the movie on your end. You hit play when they say three, two,
Right.
one, hit play on the DVD. And I watched that thing you do with the whole cast. W-
Mm.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, but the Russo brothers did Avengers Endgame,
Really.
and so that was just the other day. And as they were talking, they said that they felt when theaters open back up after all the craziness with the COVID-19's over, they think they want to do a limited run of Infinity War Endgame double feature back in the theater because he was sharing those live recordings from inside the theater when, you know, when the hammer goes
Oh,
into
yeah, I did see
Captain
that.
America's
Yeah,
hand
yeah.
and everybody's cheering and everything. I remember that was fantastic
Yeah,
when
in
I
the
was in the
theater, it
theater.
was great.
Everybody was cheering. And so now they're talking about they want to, bring it back. And I thought that'd be good because Avatar, we don't want a re-release of that.
Well, I
Although
mean,
Disney owns it all anyway, so they'll probably re-release Avatar, which will probably overtake Endgame again
well,
because it'll make more money because they'll say they'll need to re-release that to theaters to get people hyped for the next one that comes out because people have completely forgotten about Avatar. So they're going to have to re-release it. And that it only needed it was a small amount of money, 50 million, 40 million, something like that. You do a worldwide release of Avatar again, maybe throw in a special look at the end of the film of the new one coming out.
right.
Everyone will rush to it. They'll go see it in IMAX. They'll see the 3D and it'll overtake Endgame. And I think that's stupid because it's Disney against Disney, really.
Yeah,
But they want that money.
I mean, I honestly feel like why they would suggest even doing that is because everyone just pushed their slate pretty much till November is when everything like it seems like in November that's when all the summer movies are going to start coming out through, the winter and stuff like that. But you've already seen some places opening back up. Like you've got certain states opening back up right now. And I feel like, let's say everything kind of goes back to normal by June, July, there's going to be nothing in the theaters. You know what I'm saying? Because everyone, all the major ones that pushed it, So it would make sense to re-release some of these movies. Again, so I could see that kind of them using that as a justification to release it, and also it could put them ahead of Avatar a little more. But and I think just kind of go back to the winners and losers in the box office is I remember it was probably like a decade ago or more. George Lucas and Spielberg were talking about there's going to be an implosion in Hollywood where the budgets have just gotten so out of control that most of these movies could be made for 15 or 25 million, but because of all the crazy costs involved or how big of a machine Hollywood's gotten, it's
Right.
sort of this runaway train. And so it's funny when you kind of look at these things, that the big blockbusters, they have to either be a success or they're an utter failure because their budgets are just so unrealistic at this point, and that's why I don't understand why they don't take time and make sure they do good stuff. uh
Well,
you
when
know
you look at the credits of Avengers Endgame, there's like 400 people,
yeah,
400 credits. That's a lot of mouths to feed, and you figure the minimum salary is 65 grand on a
yeah.
show like that. I'm not talking
Well,
PAs, I'm talking like the minimum. But, those
honestly,
shows will go for 11 months of 65 days of filming for a movie like that, all the post work, all the, pre-work. So it's like an 11-month commitment for a huge Marvel movie.
I
400
think with those
people.
movies, so it's like with those movies, I mean, if you want to really get into the budgets of it, let's be real, the actual shooting of the movie isn't what's eating up the budget. Because the actual shooting, like, that's probably not even, that it probably is around the 10 million or whatever of it's the actors. And I would say the big one is the CGI because when you look at it, most of that movie, like when I remember watching Infinity War behind the scenes, the scene when Tony walks out of the Beaker Street, Doctor Strange's place and rounds the corner and sees all this destruction. I definitely thought that was New York or a backlot that was meant to look like New York. And then when you see the behind the scenes, it's all blue screens. He walks out of the building and it's just all these blue screens. So like that's crazy. And like so
It's
that just shows
crazy.
you how much money like they're dumping into visual effects because I mean even their suits in Endgame were all CGI. Like all those like Ant-Man variation suits that they wore to go
Yeah.
through the time stuff, those are all CGI 100%. None of it was real. And so it's like that's what's causing all these budgets to just blow up is all the visual effects that everyone think. And I mean, I don't think you need all that. Like Mandalorian's a great example where, there's a decent amount of special effects in it, but it's really good. And the way, especially with their new design with the shooting with virtual sets, like dude, that's where you don't need all that crazy money. I mean, granted, that was probably a very expensive television show.
Well, no, but they did spend 18 million just developing that tech,
Right.
minus the cost of the show,
But they'll get that in return.
which was like
Yeah.
15 million an episode. And some of those episodes were like 32 minutes long, 38 minutes
Yeah,
long. They weren't even. Yeah.
that's the thing that got me with that too, is that well, it's because there was only an A story. Because if you notice that, and I was kind of like trying to think, I was like, why is this so short? But there's no B or C story to go
Like on a
to.
regular television show, you'd have other people you could talk.
Right. You
Yeah.
could cut
It's
to the
just an A
villain
story.
or to something else. But with this, you never really left the Mandalorian. Like it was literally just either time jumps or whatever. You never really cut to the bad guys. Oh, we're gonna get that little Yoda or whatever. Like you never saw that perspective. So when you kind of take out all the other storylines, that makes sense to me. That why it was, oh, you might have a 30-minute episode, but still, I don't mind 30-minute episodes, but not when you have eight. It's like,
Right.
give me
They all need to
more.
be an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. 50 minutes, 52 minutes, something that like they're
Or
doing
just
with
more
Ozark.
episodes. Like do a 13 episodes if you're going to do some episodes at 30 minutes or, 40 or whatever. So,
Y Yeah, so uh, the idea that they wanna release of it, I would go see a double feature Infinity War Endgame in the theater.
I don't, I mean, cause like,
Why?
cause it's like, and I guess this is a good way to pivot to the main story. of the week, which was Universal and Regal saying they're not
Yeah,
going to play any of.
AMC, same. Yeah,
Yeah, or I'm sorry, yeah, it was it's Universal, right? That
it's Universal
saying
and
that,
AMC are fighting
and Regal jumped in.
because
Yeah,
and Regal jumped in. It's all because they released Trolls
right,
in theaters and on the same day released it for 19.99 on demand.
right.
And it was one of the first times that they've done that. And it really pissed off AMC. And I understand AMC because they work out these contracts ahead of time. And, the theater companies get 80% of the box office or 85% of the box office, and they get a small fraction of it. And that's why the concessions are so expensive. We both managed movie theaters back in the
Yeah,
90s. We understand um, how the movie theater system works. And so, they're only making 10 or 15 cents off every ticket sale or whatever the case may be. And so they saw that as like that video on demand as taking money away from their contract. And,
I'm sure
you
Blockbuster
know,
thought the same thing when streaming became a thing, and we see how that worked for them. You
we
know.
see how that turned out. I think there's going to be a place for movie theaters in the future. But it's kind of like Universal came out with a statement after, yeah, because here's the deal. Um, Fast and Furious franchise has brought in $5.7 billion, and the next movie got bumped to next year. Fast and Furious 9. It's called the Fate Saga. Okay.
Yeah,
And that movie's going to make $1 billion, and AMC or Regal would be stupid not to have it in their theaters. And I would assume this COVID-19 thing will blow over enough that they won't make people sit 6 seats away from each other because that's really
no,
going to eat up into the box office. That
yeah,
you just can't. You can't stagger seats like that in a theater. You're never going to make any money. Um, and so they're not going to say no to Universal movies. They're
yeah,
not. That's the dumbest thing ever. And what Universal said was times are changing and we understand that there's always going to be a place for cinema. The way people create movies is to see them on the big screen. But if we don't look at that other component, it's like when pay-per-view came out, the fights before MMA, when everybody was pay-per-viewing like Mike Tyson, and that's where Mike Tyson made all of his money was the
yeah.
pay-per-view events.
Oh
And
yeah,
and everybody would pay $187 at your house to watch a pay-per-view event and watch Mike Tyson knock somebody out in 91 seconds. And you're like, well, I just spent $187, had all my friends over.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
50 people all drinking beer, and you just watch Mike Tyson kill somebody like that.
yeah,
It's a component. And I think video on demand is definitely going to pick up. And it's just one of those things that the industry has to either figure out how to make it work together.
right,
Like you come to the theater, you get to see this movie, and you'll get a promo code to go home and get a digital download or a digital download of another movie, right? So
right.
so you'll pay a little bit more to go see it at the theater to know you're going to get a second movie free they're going to come up with a plan. They have to because the whole industry has to change.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel sorry for the theaters at all. They kind of did this to themselves, as far as I'm concerned. And I do look at it as like a blockbuster Netflix situation. Like you either embrace change and go with the progress, or you're going to get left behind. And the way I look at it is the problem is today, everyone, I'd say most people, or, just about everyone's house I go into, you see at least a 40-inch flat screen. And, and especially these days, most people either have like a good 1080 or 4K TV and a sound
Yeah,
bar or
because
something
they're
like
so
that.
cheap. They're so cheap.
They're so cheap now and they're good. So it's like for me, like to take it back to sort of would I go watch Infinity War and Endgame in the box office? No, because I own them on Vudu. So I can just watch them in the comfort of my home on a 4K TV with a sound bar and crank it up and get the same experience, or close to it. I mean, and I'm not saying like I do think theaters are great for event films. Like you're damn sure I'm going to be watching Top Gun Maverick in the movie theater. because that movie deserves to be seen on a big screen. Same with like
Right.
Avengers or whatever. Like I would probably like, like Ant-Man and Wasp, I probably wouldn't have saw that. I didn't go see that in the theater, I don't think. And so like I waited for it to come out and I rented it. So there's some movies like, and I think the problem is like these art films and stuff like that, those are done. Like no one's really going to go and put the money like because people would rather just watch that, especially like someone I was looking in the comment section and someone brought up a good point. Theaters, like when you go to theaters now, you always got some jerk pulling out their phone in the middle of the
Oh
movie
god, yeah, I can't stand that. Oh,
and
geez.
or someone's talking, or people are being obnoxious and there's no ushers anymore. I never see anyone walk through the theaters like when we were in high school working at theaters. Like no one's going through and like telling people to be quiet or turn their phones off. And then also like the theater I go to, like it's sort of it's an AMC and like one of the projectors I saw Rambo, the newest Rambo in there, and I could barely see what was going on in that movie because these cheap bastards don't want to change their bulbs out when their bulbs start to go. So the movies start to get real dim. And I was reading an article that a lot of these theaters are just riding it out because I guess it doesn't use as much electricity or they just don't want to spend the money for the new bulbs. So it's just like I consistently have not so great experiences at the theater, but when I'm at home, if I have to go to the bathroom, I can pause it. If I want to eat something, it's not going to cost me $50, So it's like
Well, and I
theaters
think
need
I
to
think for
evolve.
I agree to an extent, but for me to be in a theater, especially like if I go back and when I would watch Star Wars a second time and I knew I was in a theater with people that had not seen it and I knew when a certain scene was coming up and to hear the
Yeah.
crowd and every year, which I don't know I'll be able to do it this year, but every year for the 4th of July, the cinema that I go to always runs Jaws
Right.
because the movie takes place on 4th of July, weekend and all that. And they do it every year, and every year I go and it's sold out. A regular cinema is sold out with the movie Jaws that came out in 1975. And every time I go, there are people that scream when Ben Gardner's head pops out of the hull of the boat when
Right.
Hooper's sees the tooth. Scream, jump.
Yeah.
My mother went with me and sat next to me for I don't know, I guess it was the 40th anniversary. She came and watched it with me and jumped and got scared. And I was like, the magic is still there. And sometimes, like for me, like I want to be in the theater to see Chris Evans catch
No,
Thor's hammer
I'm
and
with you on
hear
that.
that. And like for me, like I thrive in the theater. I don't like watching stuff at home on a flat screen. I just don't. I would
Well,
rather see it large.
and I
And
think
the theater that I
I
go
think
to, unlike yours, has a
right, yeah.
PDX laser projection so that the light is perfect all the way around. It's got all this. I mean,
Yeah.
it depends on the theater. AMC started expanding way too fast
Right.
and then buying up other cinemas, like when they bought Carmike Cinemas.
Right.
So they inherited like 1,200 theaters, and then over the last 5 years, they were remodeling them, putting the AMC symbol on the front, redoing everything on the inside, all self-service Coke
Right.
machines, which I think that's going to go away because people are touching the thing and touching the screen, and
Right.
it's going to go back to people handing you a Coke and putting a lid on it because you can't with coronavirus, you don't know who's touching what. And so I think they overextended themselves on these construction loans. So now
Yeah.
AMC is looking at any movie that goes straight to VOD is taking money that they're in debt, but that's what bankruptcy's for. They're not going to go away, but I could see movie theaters not being 16 plexes anymore
Right.
and scaling them back, maybe figuring out what to do with some of the other screens, knocking down walls, making them bigger. Maybe a 16 plex will become an 8 plex and just make the screens bigger. uh, I could see them evolving like that. Um,
Well, they
but
have
I
to
get it. I know you wanna sit at home so you can pee. I get it.
well, no, I mean, the thing and I'm with you on event films, I would rather see it in the theater just to have those moments with an audience. Like, it was great, especially Endgame, that was a great movie in the theater. Like, I remember when Spider-Man came back to life, the theater just lost their shit when he came on screen, you know? And then, of
Yeah.
course, when you see, Chris Evans as Captain America get the hammer, everyone lost their shit in that and so, like,
Yeah. And
yes,
then what, Avengers Assemble? Come on.
right, so, yes, those kinda movies absolutely are for the theater, but then there's tons of other movies that really don't need to be in the theater. Like, they're just not, like, you know, because again, even with kids, like going to the theater with kids, I imagine is a nightmare. So, and especially if you got a bunch of them, you know, they want everything. They're loud. You're trying to get them to be quiet so you can pay attention to the movie. Whereas, wouldn't you rather just do that in your living room, you know, with the kids? You know, do they need to have that social experience with everyone at the theater? Because I don't think they get it. You know, like when you're older, you get it and you get that shared experience. But I don't think all movies need that treatment. And I'm not saying that they don't deserve to be in the theater. You can have art house theaters that play those kind of things, but I think the main multiplexes and like you remember the Independence where we worked back in the day in the Carmike Theater that had that one massive, which I would say would be probably IMAX size, that number 2 theater because we had it was a 3
Yeah.
cinema
Yeah. It
and
was
you
a
had the
Cinema 3, and that was the largest screen in North Carolina. The whole state
really.
was in that theater.
But I remember
That number
it was huge, you know,
It
and
was massive.
New Center was like that too. They're all modeled after each other. So it's like that's what they need to go back to because you can't get those experiences in your home. You can't get a big IMAX like crazy, you know, sound experience in your home. Like the theater you go to, that's amazing theater. Unfortunately, there's a lot of places that don't have amazing theaters like the Point or whatever that you go to. So it's like
Yeah.
I mean, I think that a lot of people are end up with like and there's even if I went to the Regal in Silver Spring or whatever, it's not much better, you know? So it's like it's kind of hit and miss all over the country. And so I do think that there's a decent amount of movies that people would happily watch. And I think what's messed up with what the theater chains are doing is they're trying to it's like extortion. They're basically saying like, hey, we're not going to let you explore this new emerging thing because we had an agreement back in the day, you know, and it's just like times have changed, man. And you either like, because
Well,
again,
not
this is
not
what,
not not only times have changed, but
yeah,
a thing came out today, on the coronavirus. It was a survey of who is gonna return to the cinema after the pandemic. 40% said they're not gonna go back to movie theaters. 40%.
yeah.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine studio heads going 40% are
Yeah.
saying they're scared to go back to the cinema? Oh, you have to do what the consumers want you to do.
Well, that's it. Exactly. It's like you give, and that's what Steve Jobs, he was kind of a big jerk. Like if I read his biography or whatever, the guy was a jerk, but he understood what people wanted and he gave them what they wanted or what he thought that they wanted. And so it's the same thing. It's like I'm a consumer. I would rather watch half the movies that come out in the theater in my home. So just eliminating that as an option sucks. Like cuz it's again you're trying to prop up your old model and not evolve with the times. And like that'll work for so long, but eventually the consumers are going to demand it. Especially now, they're like, "Why can't we have this?"
Well, look how the consumers demand it. As soon as Netflix came on, HBO had to do a thing.
Right.
CBS had to do a thing. Disney had to do a thing. Everybody had to do a thing because the old cable people are cutting the cord and going.
Right.
They were going to make their money,
Right.
and they're making it twofold because some people still have full cable and have their apps because they want it when they're on their phone, when they're
Right.
traveling. They want to have their stuff. So the audience demanded that all these networks come up with their own things, and then you look at like NBC Universal coming out with the Peacock.
Right.
Now other networks that are smaller, like Paramount and stuff, are piggybacking and jumping on board and cutting deals with those streaming platforms so that they can put their libraries together.
Right.
Because United Artist isn't going to come up with a United Artist app; they're going to just throw it in, bundle it in with somebody else. And it's kind of like you with Hulu. You can
Right. Add what
bundle
you
whatever
need.
you want,
Yeah.
add what you need. And that just in the last, what, 10 years, that has been a huge evolution from cable to this new way of consuming entertainment.
Well, because I mean, let's be honest, nobody likes commercials. Like, they suck. And especially that was like the
No.
great thing about streaming. It's like I've gotten so used to, because I cut the cord years ago. So I've gotten used to, and I pay for no ads on Hulu, and I pay the extra money for no ads on the CBS app, which I'm about to get rid of that one. But but it's like when you go but whenever I go back to watch regular TV, I'm like, how do people do this? Like you're just getting into something, and then it cuts to a obnoxious commercial that's way louder than the program you're watching, and then you gotta basically everyone just kind of messes with their phone, waiting for all this dumb crap to be over with till the show starts back up. And it's such a
Yeah.
dumb way to do it. And there was no model, or there was no other way to get it back then, so I understood why it was created and how it worked, but times have changed. This isn't like the 40s and 50s or whatever, like
Times have changed, but I will tell you that, like, Hulu, the wife and I don't pay the 6.99, we have the 4.99.
right.
So we get commercial breaks. Um, and you're gonna see that with Netflix and all that. They're gonna put a trailer or something in the front of their movies
Yeah, I
that
don't
maybe
mind that.
promotes another one of those movies or something. Um, so I don't think you're gonna get around to it, but like Hulu, just on its own, brings in $12 billion
Right.
a year. That's the subscription and all the advertising, right? So why is Disney gonna mess with that business model right now?
Right.
They left it alone
But they gave people
after they
options.
bought it.
So like
They did give people options, yeah.
if you
And
want to watch the commercials, you can.
how
If
many
you don't,
really
you don't have to.
how many people really, like me, don't pay the extra $2?
I'm sure a decent amount. Like some people can
Yeah,
deal with it more than others. Like I personally, it drives me nuts. So I'll pay the extra money just to not have to suffer through commercials. And that's
right.
great. I have like my viewing experience is great now because I don't have to sit through any commercials. And again, I don't mind the ones like on HBO will always show some advertisement for one of their other shows. That I don't mind. And I know Hulu, some of their stuff, they might show an ad in the beginning and that's it. And I do think that's sort of the model they
Well, you
should
look at
go
what
to.
HBO always plugs another HBO show
Right. And I don't mind
to
that.
get you hooked on something else. And that was when I was still paying 14.99 for HBO.
Right.
Now I don't pay that HBO now. But yeah, look, the whole thing with the theaters, it's going to be interesting just and it's not going to happen overnight. But then with this COVID-19 thing, it could happen a lot sooner than we think, where they just evolve and make the theater going experience more of an entertainment thing, where you might have a mini putt-putt golf inside, and so the kids could go play that while I mean, they're gonna have to make these things like those, you know,
I don't even think they
Chuck E.
have to
Cheese with, like, entertainment like that, like goofy stuff.
I don't even think they have to do that. I mean, I think they like kind of in the 80s you had bigger screens but fewer of them. Way in the 70s and 80s. And then sort of like towards the end of the 80s and then 90s there was this explosion where like theaters with a ton of screens became the rage, and these like town centers they started building these mega multiplexes, but in order to do that they made the theaters a lot smaller, so they could have more showings and all that. And I think what they need to do is return to the big theater experience where you go in and sit in a massive screen that you couldn't even, get the concept of that in your living room. Just a massive theater that's like 5 stories tall or 2 stories tall or whatever, just
Or like
massive.
in New York City that have a balcony.
Right. Go back to those and then actually have the projectors are like really good. You have ushers, just coming to make sure everyone's not being a jerk while you're watching the movie, and stuff like that. I think you could still have successful theater chains if they just sort of went back and improved, which they've kind of been doing with the recliners and all that stuff. But I think the idea of just so many screens, just that's not needed anymore. Because I
Well,
guarantee,
I mean,
like,
it's like the airlines. They they are more concerned with just packing people in a plane and killing the knee space versus having really nice seats that you could be comfortable in, all because they want to cram in those extra 3 or 4 seats to sell. And then over the years, they've taken away the food. They've taken away, well, if you're only doing a puddle jump, you don't even get a soda anymore. And now with COVID-19, they're going to cut out coffee. They're going to cut out the drinks. They're going to cut out the bags of anything on all the flights. And to them, that's saving money because they don't have to treat people with any kind of kindness because they can they're gonna have no choice to fly because they're gonna need to fly to go to meetings or to
Right.
travel. But now they don't have to take care of them anymore. Oh, because we don't want to touch the cans, or we don't want to give you something that might be right. But with the theater going experience, they have to do something more.
Right.
Make the people dress instead of having polo shirts on and slacks. Give them the nice outfits. Make them have I don't know, give them a sense of ownership, pride. But I remember when projectionists were unionized positions.
Oh, really?
Yeah, over the Mason-Dixon line,
No
which is
kidding.
why Carmike Cinemas had all of their theaters in the South, was because they didn't have to pay 55, $60,000 a year for a projectionist. That's what it was when you were in Maryland, New Jersey, New York, all that. It's unionized.
Oh, wow. I had
It was
no
like a
idea.
stagehand thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Not the ushers, not the but the projectionist because
Projectionist,
that was
yeah.
running a piece of equipment.
Hmm.
And now everything's on a hard drive.
Right,
So
yeah.
any idiot who has an iPhone
Right,
can run a cinema.
right. Well, now these
Insane.
days, it's just managers, I think, run the projectors, and it's all
Yeah.
automated, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. I wanted to talk about another topic here.
Mhm.
Uh, your favorite show, CW's The Flash,
Ugh.
just aired its 17th episode, I think, for this season. And it looks like they were in negotiations for a ninth season, eight and ninth season.
Yeah.
Is that correct? They were in negotiations, and now it's all stalled because of the pandemic. Yeah, the 8th and ninth season, they don't know. N The negotiations have stalled, they don't know when they're coming back.
Yeah, I read an article actually today about that, and it sounded like Grant Gustin was pretty much saying there's been projects he's wanted to work on, but during their hiatus, he something always like the project he wanted to do always fell through because of the Flash. And and I get it, man. I mean, what are they? They just did 7 seasons, and they're getting ready to go into an eighth. Is what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
I
8th and
mean,
ninth, they wanna sign him for 2 more. And then, it's funny, I watched Michael Rosenbaum's Inside of You.
oh yeah,
Uh, I really like that pod show and or podcast, and, um, Stephen Amell had some anxiety and, like, broke down and wigged out, had to come back and do another, and now Grant Gustin was on Inside of You, and he was talking about his struggles with anxiety and depression,
hmm,
because he was so young when he first started, and the fan base body shamed him for being too skinny,
I remember that.
and they didn't think he fit the costume well because he was this skinny little guy, ultra skinny guy. And that sucks, man. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for Steve Amell. I know they've all come out of that and they feel better about themselves now, I'm sure. But to be depressed and to go through all that stuff and carry the weight of a series on your shoulders like that, um, I just, it just sucks that these fan bases suck. And it's something we were talking about earlier about Twitter. Uh, you know, there's 350 million people in the US and there's only 38 million people on Twitter. There's not
Right,
a lot of people on Twitter in the
right,
US. And so it's such a small minority of people that just open their mouth and just attack all the
right.
time. Twitter's, for the most part, can be very, very toxic.
It's a dumpster fire
Um,
most of the time.
it's a dumpster fire.
Yeah,
And it's always, even with like Kelly Marie Tran, right? Wasn't she the one
yeah,
that
yeah.
was, yeah, Rose Tico in Star
Last
Wars, The
Jedi.
Last Jedi
Yeah,
and Rise of Skywalker? They went after her to the point where she got off of social media. And the thing is, she wasn't, um, people I didn't mind her
I
character.
didn't
I
get
mean,
it. I didn't get the outrage.
I didn't
She's an
I
actress.
didn't
She had
understand.
zero to do with her lines and her story arc. Like, the writers and the director were in charge of that. She was an actor. She did great as an actress. I had no
She
complaints
did
with
her
her
job.
performance. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
the character was dumb and the writing was dumb. Like that, or at least for me it was. But wouldn't go harass her online about it. That's crazy to me. So, yeah,
and
I don't get it.
you're hearing a lot of actors recently, are going public with, like, this crazy depression, or how the fans just attack them and go
Oh, yeah.
nuts, and, um, I don't know, man. I mean, I've never been in that spot, as an actor, someone I mean, I've never had a career as very successful like these guys do, where they're going 8, 9 seasons carrying a whole show on their backs, but you would think they could turn off the noise, but
Well, they
most
should.
actors most actors are insecure, and they're always looking for approval, and they're always looking, I'm an actor, so I can say this, and they're just always wanting to please, 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 please the audience and make everybody
Right.
happy. "Oh, I'm too skinny. Oh my god, what do I need to do? Oh god." Or, "Oh, I'm too fat. Oh, Coke and cigarettes, Coke and cigarettes."
Right.
You know, cocaine and Coca-Cola, Diet Coke. Um, and then that leads them down these horrible rabbit holes. But I just feel bad for Grant Gustin because I've always loved him as the Flash, and, it's just a shame that, he had to go through that,
He's been
early
a
on with the
I
first couple of seasons.
the first 2 seasons of Flash was my favorite TV. Like, that's the one show I looked forward to every year more than everything else. I was like, "The Flash." I was First season was amazing. Like,
Yeah, I really love
there
the
was
first season.
so many amazing moments because I remember I would think I was the one that told you to watch it because I went to pretty much every one of my friends. I was like, "You need to watch this show. It is so good." And
Yeah, and
most
I was
everyone that
shocked
watched
at
it.
the level of the visual effects for a television show,
Yeah.
with the animation where he's running and the lightning behind him and all that stuff, and he's streaming through the streets, and
Yeah.
everything was just so good.
I
And
think
then
the whole
I liked Arrow. The first couple of seasons of Arrow were great. Soon as he stopped killing people,
yeah.
it
The
started to just
first It's same
go
with
down
that.
the
They
tube.
it had 2 good seasons, and then it started kinda going south, and I don't understand, and I did notice it seemed like after the both of those shows, after the first couple seasons, there was all of a sudden this push to make them ensembles, where they always had supporting characters, but now they wanted to prop up all the supporting characters and make them like, "Oh, now this is more of an ensemble," even though the show's
Well,
called Arrow.
it was kinda like you were talking about with The Mandalorian.
Right,
Instead of having an A story that goes all the way through with Grant Gustin, they had an A story, a B story, a C story, a D story, and every
right,
single character had their own B line, A line, C line, D
right,
line,
yeah.
and it just got convoluted.
Right, I'm here to watch The Flash.
The Flash.
Like,
I'm not here to watch Skid Mark or whatever the guy's name was that had the tire tread on his face.
well, and I don't even mind them coming in as supporting characters, but it's the Flash. So most of your screen time should be about him and the issues that he's dealing with, not all, and or with the Arrow. So it's just like, let a show be what it is. Like, if it's about the Flash, let the focus be the Flash and not everybody else on the show. And so I think that's probably why the fan base has fallen off. Like, because if you do look at most of the CW shows, there's none of them have been getting better as each season goes. They just keep losing audience members. And I think whatever happened over there at that time definitely made it worse because they started off really great. Arrow, because I remember I suffered through 10 years of Smallville waiting for him to put on the damn suit. And then that's why I never watched Gotham. Is like, I'm not falling for that trick again. Like, I
And
did that with
they did the
Smallville.
same thing all
Right.
the way through, and
I
then he was in the suit for the last 30 seconds or
I could have
something of
told you
the
that's how it was going to happen. Like, who
yeah,
wants to watch
terrible.
Gotham without Batman? I mean, it's stupid. So, I
Who
mean,
wants
and they
to
were
watch
doing
Joker without Batman?
right. And like with
Okay,
Smallville too, they were doing all like they had Zod come, they had Doomsday show up, and he wasn't even Superman yet. So I was like, you're already doing the Superman stories, just make him Superman. But so like, and I remember watching so I thought I was done. I was like, oh well, there's nothing for me to watch. And I remember seeing the ad for Arrow, and I was like, That looks stupid. Who wants to watch some dude in a hood shooting stuff? Because they had an Arrow character on Smallville, but then I have to say the first trailer I saw where he was like shooting the arrows really quick at the tennis balls, and you saw them all stuck on the thing. I was like, that's kind of cool. I dig that. And then, but what hooked me was that first episode when he killed somebody, and I was like, what? Like, they never did that on Smallville. This is amazing. Like, and I loved it. They just leaned in and went sort of gritty with it. And it was just so
Yeah,
different. And because they're, again, everyone acts like no one kills anybody in the comics. Like Wolverine is the most X-rated thing there is in the comic books, you know? And so the comic book characters do kill people. There's only a handful that are like virtuous who don't do it, you know? So it was cool seeing that because you never see that in the movies or TV. You know, they always depict them as these, you know, super amazing people who don't kill anybody, but they'll beat the crap out of them, you know? So it was kind of fun to see them kind of explore that a little bit. And then, you know, they walked it back in season 2 and then but pretty much everyone kind of fell off and because I feel it was because they got away from it being about an Arrow show and started focusing on Felicity and Diggle and whoever else, you know, showed up and not let
right,
them just be
right.
supporting characters. Um so yeah,
When was the last time you tuned into The Flash?
I watched last season. The last season actually wasn't too bad. The one with their daughter from the future. Like I kind of I waited till it all came out on Netflix and then I kind of binged it and I was like this actually isn't too bad and it actually had like some really sweet moments in it. But
Well,
the biggest problem with the Flash is they keep teasing like they're going to kill him off because they've done this fake killing him like 3 or 4 times already where you're like and it's gotten to the point now it's like we know it's not real, you'll be back at the beginning of next season, like
right, right, because
stop
you are
it.
the Flash, right?
Well, and the thing is what they could do is like Wally West does become the Flash in the comic books, you know, like Barry Allen, you know, in Crisis dissolved into the Speed Force and then Wally West took over from being Kid Flash as the Flash. They could do that. And they might do that if Grant Gustin doesn't renew his contract unless there's something going on. I haven't really followed Legends because I know um the that Wally West has been on that show. So I don't know what's going on with him, but he could easily take over being the Flash like they did in the comic books. But yeah, I just don't know. I don't know where they're gonna go with it at this point. I mean, if Grant Gustin's kind of lost his passion for it, he should definitely leave. You know, because it's just
Yeah.
you're gonna see it, and he might not be loving what they're doing with his character anyway at this point. So
Well, it's funny. There's another guy, Austin from the review show.
yeah.
Uh, and he did a review on the Netflix movie. I think it's called Code 8, which stars
Oh yeah.
Stephen Amell. And he literally was like, "It's Arrow without Arrow." And
Well,
I haven't seen it yet, but I mean, he Steve Amell must be playing to that type, you know, that kind of character. And I hope that Grant Gustin doesn't get. He seems like he could break
yeah. I mean,
that
because he was on
type.
Glee and all that before he
Yeah,
did.
he could go back to. He could do romantic comedies or go do something else.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know.
so he definitely could go do whatever next. You know, and there might be
But
a
you look at like
position open
Brand.
in the Flash movie series, so you never know.
No, nobody wants a 45-year-old Flash. They already had John Wesley Shipp back on doing his
No,
thing.
I'm talking about Grant Gustin as the Flash.
Oh,
He's not
oh, as
45, is he?
no, I'm talking about me. I thought you were like,
Oh
there's a
no.
position opening
No,
and
I'm
you could go
saying
play the Flash.
I'm
I'm like,
saying
no,
if
no one wants to see it.
no, I'm saying with Grant
No,
Gustin, if he's tired of playing the Flash on TV, they might have a spot opened up in the movies. You never know.
I don't know. I saw what's her name that's directing a Wonder Woman 84.
Oh yeah.
What's her name? You know,
Is it Patty Jenkins? Is that it?
Patty Jenkins. Yeah, she's talking about the new movie is she said one thing that was really good because they had talked about it being a reboot,
Soft reboot or
kind
something. Yeah.
soft reboot, but she says it's not. It's still within the linear
Right.
timeline because you know she doesn't age,
Right.
And, so that made me feel really good, but she said the look, feel, and everything of the movie is totally different. Well, yeah, it doesn't take place during World War One,
Right.
where it's all gritty and nasty and dirty and you're fighting in the trenches. It takes place in 1984 where all the colors are hot pink and beautiful
Yeah.
and the Go-Go's were
Neon.
popular and
Yeah.
neon and so it was good to see her talking about the movie, but again, like everything's just being pushed, you know? And we were talking earlier, John Wick got pushed,
Yeah.
and everything's getting pushed.
Oh, I mean,
So,
yeah, November, you're not gonna see anything until November. So it's gonna be interesting to see if all this sort of clears up by July. What are the theaters gonna do for 3 months? I don't get it.
well, but the other thing is if it doesn't clear up and we have a second wave in the fall, that's just gonna shut down all the theaters all over again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's too bad because I would like the problem with the movies on demand thing, like Trolls, whatever. I get why that, like, I wouldn't be using that as an example of, oh, this is proof because you've got everyone kind of quarantined in their house. The kids aren't in school, and you have a
So the
troll
kids need
movie that
something to
you
watch.
can, right. And you got a movie that I think if you rent it, you've got 24 hours. And so you can keep watching it, and kids will just, you can put
Right.
them there. That's a babysitter for the day, probably for a lot of parents. So I
Let's watch
get,
it again.
and it was $20. So like, that's great. But the thing for me is pretty much every movie I have no desire to see. Now, the thing with, if they would do it with like a real movie that, like they've tested the waters with some movies, but they haven't really done it with a blockbuster. And I was kind of hoping they would have done it with Black Widow, but then you'd had people complaining if it didn't do as good as that. But I do feel like, and that's fine if they want to save that one, but there could have been another blockbuster type movie. It would have been great to see how it would have done. Because I'm not even sure if I'm going to go watch Black Widow in the theater. I might wait for it to come out on rental or Disney Plus. Like, I'm kind of
Oh
on the
hell no.
fence. Like,
Oh hell no. I'm going to see it. I'm going to see it in the theater. I got to see
I,
it on the big screen. I got to
I,
support that franchise. I got to support her.
I might go see it because I am interested in the Russian Captain America aspect of it. Like that.
Right, David Arbor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of curious about that, and then just see her kind of origin a little bit more than what they teased in Ultron, Age of Ultron. But it's like, I mean, again, I like Black Widow, but she's not like a main character that I've got to go see in the theater, like
Right.
Iron Man was. And like, because there's a lot of people who didn't go see Thor in the theater, until
Well, I didn't see Dark Lord, what was
or
the
Dark World.
Dark whatever, Dark World. I didn't see
Yeah.
that. I still haven't seen it yet. It's on Disney Plus. I have Disney Plus. I still haven't seen it.
Yeah. Well,
I gotta watch that one.
it's okay. But I mean, so there's been some Marvel movies I just, I don't know,
I
like if
didn't
I
see
want to go see
Ant-Man in
it.
the theater.
Right.
I saw it,
So,
later, and
but
I just
they're
watched Captain Marvel. I didn't see that in the theater.
no, I
Just
didn't see
watched
that
it
in
on
theater.
Disney Plus.
No. So there, I mean, but the thing, my point is, if they would have released it on pay per view or movie on demand, I would have paid the $20 to watch that before it came out as a rental. Just because it's sort of like, is it worth going to the theater? Because around here, in my area, it's just not as, it's never simple, or the theater, like the one that's closest to me, isn't always the best theater. So it's like if I really want to go to a really nice theater, that's usually a whole event and everything. So for me, it's just like, is it worth all that, or could I just pay $20 and watch it in my living room? I would have paid the $20. So they might not get me in the theater, but they'll definitely get me in the home. And so that's the thing too, is like, I think they're leaving money on the table because I do feel like there are a lot of people that would pay that $20 to watch it in their house versus go to the theater.
Well, I think you're gonna get your wish. I think if there's a second wave in the fall,
Yeah.
you're gonna see a blockbuster get released,
Yeah, I mean,
VOD.
they'd have to at that point. I mean, because 'cause they're sitting on assets. They gotta offload it and get their money back. Because
Yeah.
you can't just, because that money is tied up that they thought they would get back. So, like, once you start operating on that level, like, people they take money from someone and that person's expecting to have their return or some form of return back by this date because, and so when you can only hold it for so long and I just don't see them like you're right. There's another wave, they're going to have to do, you know, and then they could release it and then re-release it again for people that are like, I'm gonna wait for it to come out in the theater. And then you just add up all the totals after the fact. I mean, I'm gonna
Well,
watch
and
Top Gun in the theater no matter what. Like that movie I will see in the movie theater because it deserves
you'll
it.
wear a helmet with the mask
I would never. I wouldn't want
and
anything
the
to block my view. Like I'm so pumped for that movie. Like I never thought a movie I would be more hyped for a movie than like more than Star Wars. Because I remember like even maybe it was just because of Last Jedi being such a disappointment, and then kind of not getting my hopes up too much for the Last Jedi, or I mean the Rise of Skywalker. But like I ever since I saw that Top Gun Maverick trailer, I've been that is the one movie I cannot wait to see. And I was so bummed that it got pushed to December. Ugh.
I'm just on that note, I will say I'm just a little nervous for Val. I don't know
Yeah,
what that's going to turn out. That whatever his cameo is or his scene or whatever it is. Uh,
it's
no,
sad to
I hope it
see.
doesn't. I hope it doesn't make him look bad.
Yeah,
Episode three's in the can. Are you excited?
yeah.
You think we can keep doing this?
I do think we can keep doing this. Yeah,
Oh boy, we love hearing each other talk. That's for sure.
yeah.
All right, man. You have a good night. We'll talk soon.
All right, later.
Okay, everybody. Thanks for sticking around and watching episode three, or listening if you were getting the audio broadcast of the Spotlight with Shaun O'Rourke. I want to thank Stu for being my guest once again. And don't forget, HWPco sponsors my channel on YouTube. They provide me with this SM7B microphone, and Stu has an SM58, which is coming up here soon. 5/8, May 8th. They always, it's like a celebration thing. So Shure, thanks a lot for the microphones. HWPco, thank you for the microphones. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you on the next one.